Hello, this is Paul, the Oaken Knight, coming back after a bit of a layoff for the summer. My computer build is still working excellent, so much so that I built a second one. In addition, I have changed my internet provider and am enjoying way faster performance. Uploading a YouTube video for you guys used to take all night long. Now my expectation is I'm going to get it uploaded in about an hour or so. Cool. Today I'll be bringing you some new old-timey gameplay by looking at Fortress Europa, the designer's signature edition published by Compass Games in 2019. For those of you who don't know, in addition to publishing new games, Compass also reaches back in time to republish classics from the past by vastly updating the graphics treatment and enlisting someone with some connection with the original to update the rules as well as provide a better graphical treatment for our gaming pleasure. The goal is to modernize the game while preserving the original design. My first view of Fortress was the edition published by Avalon Hill back in about 1980, designed by John Edwards. From what I recall, it was marketed as a West Front cousin to the very successful The Russian Campaign, released a few years earlier. With John's permission, the opportunity to develop the designer's signature edition was given to Randy Heller, who had supported the original for many years for Avalon Hill. The game updates are apparent from the moment you open the box. Counter size is increased to a beauteous 5/8 of an inch, up from the half-inch from the prior edition, and the map is now printed on 2 full-size panels, practically doubling the size of the original. The rulebook is also much chunkier, with a base rules section almost doubling in page count from about 10 in the original to a bit over 20. I see no problem here, as the larger font size and the numerous illustrations account for a large part of the increase. Upon reading, you can see the meticulous care Randy applied to eliminate points of confusion and ambiguity. Add to that designer note and various optional rules for you to kick around. The package is very complete and ready for your enjoyment upon opening the box. The game plays like a comfortable old shoe that you just rediscovered in the back of your old closet. We are talking hexes, calculating attack odds, step losses, and the return of the age-old soak-off attack. Truly old-school gaming. But Fortress Europa was not designed in the 60s. The sequence of play is designed around the double impulse system, so successfully used in the Russian campaign. Units move, fight, and if not in an enemy zone of control and subject to weather effects, can get to move and fight a second time in the same player turn. Yes, Brunhilde, it is possible to surround and cut off units, with armor being much more than just strong infantry. That being said, this is one of the few traditional hex and counter games that does not provide for attackers advancing after combat. The lack of an attacker advance changes the turn dynamics in both subtle but important ways. The game puts players in the role of the highest command echelon. As the German, you are allowed to place your units within the military district to which it is assigned. Districts are delimited around the coastline to form zones, such as the 15th Army around Normandy, the 7th Army around Calais, and so forth. To keep allies guessing, there are also a number of free setup units that can be placed anywhere that include some of the strongest German units in the game. Finally, the standard rules allow the Germans to have a few units hidden, which is to say he writes down their hex locations on a piece of paper and picks the units up off the map. The game also provides for using a limited number of dummy units and decoy counters to cover real units, to provide fog of war without the bookwork. Since all hidden units are revealed after turn 1, I find that the dummy/decoy system is sufficient to allow solitaire play. After all, I'm an old guy and I forget stuff. But if this isn't enough randomness, you could simply put the dummy counters and the real counters in a cup, placing only the decoy markers on the map. Whenever you need to see what a decoy is, just pull a counter from the cup. There was so much uncertainty on both sides on June 6th, I think this would work just fine as well. Regardless of how you handle hidden units, the rest of the game is 100% solitaire friendly. As Eisenhower, the decision where to invade is up to you. After you see the Germans' deployment, you could go for a historical landing, but then maybe this is what the German expected and he loaded up for it. Or perhaps the relatively weak coastline to the west and the south, Maybe, but where are the ports? And you may be without air support. Or maybe forget about France and invade the Netherlands with its huge ports to bring in the army fast. Of course, invading that close to Germany will release all German units everywhere to come blast you back into the sea. And that is the knife edge calculation that both sides must factor into the game-altering decisions right from the start. The success of the invasion is uncertain. In the original game, I have seen the Allies push back into the sea more than once. On the other hand, maybe a softer defense is warranted, especially if the invasion comes far from Germany. The defenses on the German border are very formidable, and with a largely intact German army, could prove unbreakable. Let's play a few turns so that you can see how all this works. Let's begin by taking a quick look at the map the Germans have set up and they've deployed, and this is the situation Eisenhower is encountered with. If we take a look at the western part of the map, we've got the 1st Military District with the boundaries here. You see the dotted lines. This is our deployment. We had some units that were required to be here, and we do have some units that can appear anywhere, which I may or may not have deployed. Because if you look closer here, I'm using the decoy method that I described earlier. So we have a decoy unit, and underneath there might be a complete dummy, or it could be a real unit. Eisenhower has no idea what's under there. All the way over here to the 7th Military District, which includes the port. Let's see, this would be Brest, which is the main port to the west, as well as over to the Normandy area. Then over to Calais to the next military district, and then over to Netherlands Military District. And what I'm not showing you is the south of France, which also is a military district with its own units, but partly because there aren't all units to invade the south of France have to come from Africa. There are not that many units in Africa right now. They're all sitting in England. So we have what boils down to 4 broad brush choices, and then we have to figure out exactly where the invasion will occur. There are a couple other considerations. Besides, we have the units we see, we have units we don't see, which may or may not be real, which may or may not be substantial panzer divisions or just light troop. We have to stay within our military district. If we cross out of our military district, it activates everybody in the whole world. Right now, in the beginning, only the units in the military district you invade will be active. Others will have to stay where they're at, except if you invade too close to Germany, which is the 15th Military District and the Netherlands. You invade up there, you release everybody. Now, not everybody's going to come because you're allowed up to 2 invasions in the game, and so if you take everything off of a certain, Normandy, say, everybody leaves, well, pretty good chance the second invasion will be in Normandy. Okay, and they'll be able to build up and cause all kinds of problems and get over to Paris and all of that. The second thing to be aware of is there are limits to air cover range. Right now, there's no bases on the map. Airplanes come from headquarters, and there are no headquarters on the map for Eisenhower. So this is the limits that he can go. So, for example, over here, if he invades up here, he will have air cover. If he invades over there, he will not have air cover. Likewise, these boxes describe how many units can land, how many steps of units can land. And of course, the farther away you get from England, the fewer steps that can land. So there's trade-offs there as well. So let me take a look at this and make the big momentous decision as to where to begin the war in the West. Normally, the first thing you have to do in a turn is simply slide the turn marker over to the next turn. Of course, we are on turn 1, so there's not much to do there. The second thing that happens in a turn is determining the weather. And for the first turn of the game, it is automatically clear, so we take a pass on doing that as well. The next thing would be to allocate aircraft to missions. What we see here is the aircraft mission chart, and it has a variety of things that we could be doing, 3 of which have to do with affecting the number of replacements that are coming in. The V1 sites and the subpens can reduce the number of replacements for the Allies unless there are Allied aircraft assigned to those missions. And there is a mission that you see, attacking German replacements, that can be assigned to strategic bombers to reduce German replacements. But there are no replacements on the first turn of the game, so none of that really matters either. What really does matter is limiting German mobility and having ground support. So what you see here is the selection I did. I allocated 4 strategic bombers to railway attacks. We allocated tactical bombers to strafing, which will force any German unit moving more than 3 hexes within the air umbrella for the Allies to roll a die, and based on the number of aircraft performing this mission. So, for example, if you have 3 fighter bombers doing the strafing mission, every time a German unit moves more than 3 hexes under the air umbrella, it's a 50-50 shot of that unit taking a step loss and having to stop in its tracks. So strafing can greatly hinder the movement, especially for the armored troops within the air umbrella. And finally, ground support simply gives us a shift on ground attacks. We can allocate up to 3 of these to any ground attack. So what response options do the Germans have? Well, they have 6 aircraft for the month of June. Now that's for the whole month of June. And we have 4 turns. The turns are weekly. We have 4 turns for June. And there's also a limit of how many aircraft you can assign to any one week. So in this case, the Germans have 6 aircraft, and they can assign up to 4 of them in any one week. So there are 4 aircraft available. Each aircraft will cancel out an aircraft performing a mission. So for example, if we put 3 of the German fighters on the railway attacks, we will cancel out the railway attacks. Ground support, whatever ones we want to cancel. And in fact, what we did is we canceled one of the railway attacks. We canceled strafing attack, and we had canceled out a ground attack. So we kind of just weakened the whole thing going around. So that means that the Germans will have 3 fighter bombers available to them for the remaining 3 turns. The German aircraft go off into a use box, and they're not going to be eligible to return until July. And the Allied aircraft go off to a holding box, and they will be eligible to be used during the second week of June. So we're now done with allocating aircraft. We're on to the Allied part of the turn. There are no replacements. That's the first part of the Allied turn. Turn 1, there are no replacements. And we are on to the first impulse move. We have to do a few things here. All right, we're gonna invade by Brest. Try to shy away from some of this, whatever that is. Hopefully, still be able to take advantage of air assets to a certain degree, and the absolutely necessary target is going to be the city of Brest. Now, why is that? Supply in this game is abstract, but very well done. It's done by the supply capacity that the Allies have. Every point of supply capacity allows them to have 1 unit in Europe, no matter how big, no matter how small. They get 1. They begin with 0. However, the mulberry that will come in is worth 12. So that will allow them to have up to 12 units in Europe supported by the mulberry. To have any more units than that, they've got to get a port. So that big juicy port of Brest with 12 points is going to allow them to have 24 instead of 12 units on the map. And that's how it goes. You want to capture ports to build up your supply capacity so you can bring in more units into Europe. Very simple, elegant way of dealing with supply and constraints that the Allies faced, slowing down their build up and limiting how many troops they could have on the continent. Okay. What we're doing is we're going to have some paradroppers drop in. We've got paratroopers. We're opting to use one. I believe we can use 5 times a game. Well, here's one of them. 3 paratroopers landing in an airdrop to cordon off the area. We've got a commando raid. They want to go here, but they can't get there because of that if it's real. So the Germans will have to reveal whether that decoy is real or not. Over here, we've got the British going to be hitting this decoy unit. If it's not real, they just move in. If it is real, they have to fight. And if they are forced to retreat, the British are eliminated. Here is the Americans getting a free ride onto the land. They do not have to attack inland. All they do is attack anybody that they're with. Zones of control do not matter on this first move. We land our paratroopers, and you see the dice rolls that I rolled for the 2 Americans and the British 6th Para Division. The units were all landing within zones of control of enemy units in the clear. So according to that table, 1 through 4 is a safe drop, 5 or 6 do bad things. We had no bad things happen. All 3 manage a safe drop into their clear hexes. The British make their landing with 2 6-point infantry divisions and the one and only armored unit that can land in an invasion, which is the reduced 79th Armored Unit, bringing their 612. That's 16 points, supported by 2 naval points for 18 points, and 1 air unit allocated to bring the odds up by 1, whatever it is. The Americans make an unopposed landing, and they're good, and they're done. So let's take a look at the Germans. And you can see the German unit is a dummy. So the British land, they take the hex. The naval units are done for the turn. Likewise, the air unit has been consumed, even though there really wasn't much there to fight. So that will take care of Impulse 1 for them. The commandos that are making the commando raid discover that it is indeed also a dummy. So they are going to go ahead and get to where they wanted to land. If that was a unit with a zone of control, they could not get to B3, which is where they want to be. But it's a dummy, so they go right up that estuary and land on B3 without touching any enemy zones of control that would stop them. Here's our situation at the end of the first impulse. Everybody has landed successfully. According to the instructions here, I know it's upside down, but the Allies were able to land 32 points of infantry only, except for the 79th, which is exactly what they did. There were 16 points of Americans, 16 points of British. That included the 79th. The Americans landed the upgraded division, so they were 8 points each. And now we have the second impulse. So more guys are going to land. We're going to get to move guys. And let's see how this works out. So we have a lot going on for the second activation. Let's talk a little bit about stacking first. Normal stacking is 3 in the clear, 2 in the rough hexes, and 1 in the alpine. With some things crossing categories a little bit. But we're all dealing with clear, so let's just talk about that. On the first invasion turn, on the first impulse of the invasion, you're limited to stacking of 2 instead of 3, even though they're going into clear. So we were only able to bring in, say, 2 American infantry before. But that restriction is eliminated at the end of the first combat phase. So in the second impulse, the Americans get to bring in a third 8-point infantry unit. The British, on the other hand, they have their 2 plus the armor they had brought in. So they're already at 3, and the zones of control have them all locked up where they can't move out of that hex to be able to bring in any more units. So actually the British cannot bring in anybody. Everybody's all stacked up, and the second wave was not able to come in all that could have come in. They got about half of what they could have otherwise have had. So as far as attacks, we've got the 3 Americans, that's 24 points, hitting this guy, and he's just a 6-point coastal defense unit, so that's going to be a 4-1. But This is a game that's got soak-off attacks, and their attacks are obligatory. So this guy is in our zone of control, so we have to hit him. We're going to hit him with the 101st. Since he's a decoy, we don't know what he is yet, or he is a... there's a decoy marker. We don't know. There could be something real under there. There could be something very nasty. So I did support it with an air unit, so it's going to be the 5 point of the 101st. Plus the air unit attacking whatever's in there. All these decoys go away at the end of the American turn here, or the Allied turn here, but we're still dealing with it. We're still in that. All of the Brits, plus some naval support, plus an air unit, are hitting the port of Brest at 3-1. And then the 82nd, with some naval gunfire and some air support, are hitting Lorient at 3-1. So let me go ahead and first reveal this. And we see it is a big, nasty SS Panzer unit. Now, the good news is that he was poorly placed by me, because he's sitting on this rough terrain, and that halves his strength. So he's only 4 points. So we basically have a 2-1 on this guy, the 101st plus air support against 4 points of this 12th SS. That is 2-1. So let me go ahead and do some dice rolling, and we'll figure out how all this rolls out. The attack on Lorient is a 3-1. I rolled a 2 and arrived at an E2 result. What that does is the attacker takes 2 step losses, the defender takes 1, which is exactly the number of steps that each side has. So this is mutual destruction. The 82nd is eliminated, although it can be rebuilt at a cost. It's going to be a while before we see the 82nd again. And the coastal defense is in all likelihood done for this war. For you, the war is over. So all of them go away. And for purposes of holding eliminated units, I conveniently put them in Switzerland. And again, so to rebuild them back, it takes, let's say the 82nd is a 2 point unit. So the first hit would have reduced him. Second hit eliminates him. To get him back, however, it takes 2 replacement points to bring back an eliminated unit to its first step, and then another one to bring it back to full strength. And airborne replacement points come but once a month. So it's going to take like 3 months before we see the 82nd Airborne back at full strength. However, this weak German infantry unit, those pile up in the body bag as we go, and the Germans do not have the replacements to go ahead and take care of that. So we have a decoy there. We have no idea what's there. Lorient is wide open, but it is in German hands. The Allies do not get the port. All right, let's move on, and let's do the soak-off attack 2-1 by the 101st. Well, the boys of the 101st were PO'd by what happened to the 82nd. They rolled a 6 on 2-1. It is a D1 result. The D1 result, defender takes a step loss. The attacker retreats all defending units 2 hexes. So let's move those guys out of there. All right, here's the situation. Notice that there is, as I said before, there's no attacker advanced. So they do not go ahead and move forward based on this successful attack. All right, we have a 4-1. This pile of American infantry hitting this coastal defense unit. Let us see what happens. A 5 is rolled, which is a DE result. So those guys just pick up and get blown away. And now the big one. We're going for the port of Brest. It's 3-1. Straight up. Let us see what happens. Well, it's not good. A 4 was rolled, which sounds like a good die roll. But if you look here, you're going to see on 3-1, 1, 2, 3, 4, DR. Is a DR right there. Defender retreat. However, units in forts do not have to retreat, and Brest is a fort. So the thing just sits there, and there absolutely nothing happens. So the Allies were not able to get any kind of real port thing going here. They were knocking on the door in a couple places, but it hasn't happened yet. The last thing is the mulberry is going to land. I have to figure out where I want to put that guy. So let's do a quick review of the situation. We see that the Allies have taken their first rail hex. They pushed back the rail line, 1 hex, yay. So that would be the first one they got. We've also seen that they've placed the French partisan, which automatically shows up on turn 1. After that, it's a roll, but right now it's for sure. In the city of Le Mans, it is a rail junction that is going to keep any new units showing up here for your rail. Note that we have degraded the number of rail moves from 5 to 3, so there will be only 3 rail moves. So these guys sitting over here getting ready to rail in, only 3 of them are going to actually be able to do it instead of 5. And finally, we've got 2 strafers. That means that anybody who moves more than 3 hexes within range of air cover, which is 8. Here's Bradley showed up in the second impulse. Anywhere within 8 of Bradley, the Germans are going to have to roll. With 2 strafers, they roll a 1 or a 2, they stop moving, and they take a step loss. So it's going to kind of inhibit any long-range movement moving into the area without the chance of paying a price for it. See, there's now moving on. We have supply. All right, so we have 12. We have 12 supply from the mulberry, and we have 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have 9 units on the map. We have 9 units on the map, so we have a supply capability of 3. We've used 9 of the 12. Let me mark that. And so what this means is next turn with a supply capacity of 3, which we mark on the chart over here. There. The Allies are able to bring in 3 units next turn, unless something happens to change it, like units dying or the mulberry getting overrun or anything like that. All right, so we're up to the Germans. Now, as I said, they have certain limitations based on them, based on the Allied air power and the partisans. But we are up to the first move phase for the Germans. There are no replacements. Normally that would be first, but there are none in the first turn. First movement phase for the Germans. First off, I'm going to pick up all the decoys because they can go away. So in the immediate area anyway, we see we have another SS Panzer Division. And we have another Wehrmacht division. So they have some power over here. They had 3 over here, and one of them got banged up, which is not good. But there's 2 more. All right, I'm just going to pick up the others since we're not going to be dealing with things over there. I'm just going to pick up. I don't even have to show it to you. You could kind of say I was sort of daring the Allies to land in the Netherlands. There's some there, but I certainly did not load it up. Calais always has a lot of units. I think I reinforced over here. You can see, yeah, that's a reserve unit. That's a 7th Army unit, so that's where it should be. But that was a reserve ad. That's a reserve ad. We've got a lot of power over here for the Germans. So the Allies had best start doing something, or they could have a very hard time of it. All right, we're up to the first impulse move for the Germans, which is the printed movement allowance. We are in clear weather. They stop once they enter a ZOC. The ZOCs are rigid. There's no ZOC to ZOC movement. You have to pull out of a ZOC to move over. There's no motoring through under any circumstance. All right, let me see what we can do with the Germans. First impulse. And we can see I was able to use my 3 rail points to get them moved up to was it Le Mans, where the French partisans stopped the movement, and that will make the partisans pick up, and we will continue from there next turn or next impulse. But here we have one attack. All the German armor has concentrated on the 101st Para and achieved a 3-1. Noteworthy is that basically nothing over here is really able to move. at this point in time. They're frozen still, and they're going to be frozen for a while. You can replace units. So if I put a unit in, I could take a unit out. That is okay. This particular Panzer division is not frozen because he came from the reserve, but I opted to leave him there for the time being. So right now we simply have one attack for the Germans at 3-1 on the poor Para division. Let's see how they do. Today's not a good day to be a parachute division. They rolled a 6 and eliminated the 101st Para. So both of the mainline Para divisions for the Americans have been eliminated. And that shrinks the perimeter, so that is not a good thing. And then we follow up with the second impulse move for the Germans. The Germans are opting for a left flank attack on the exposed Allied positions. We simply have a two-point commando here, so we're going to hit him at 6-1, and British infantry, we're hitting at 3-1. The 101st collapsing, I think opened the doors for some really bad things to happen. Let me take care of this. Let's see how it worked out. So on our 3-1, we got an E2 result. That takes it puts 2 hits on the attackers, and they retreat 1. And the attacker gets to choose the retreat, but let's just put him there. And then 1 hit on the defender, and he stays. The other attack resulted in a defender retreat, and we have ZOC issues. Let me check what effect that has. And in this case, the forced retreat of the British 1st Commando through an enemy zone of control results in its automatic elimination. So this is our situation as of the end of the invasion turn. We have the perimeter that looked pretty good a minute ago does not look so good now. But on the other hand, we have three German armored units, 2 here, 1 here, each having taken a step loss. But we had best get around to taking that port, or it's just going to be a tough time for the Allies, because we can't use air power to hold guys off forever. There will be reinforcements coming, and there's got to be more Allied soldiers here to take care of them. So we advance the turn record to turn 2. We roll for weather. There's 5 chances in 6 of clear weather at this time of year in June, and we rolled clear. We allocated our aircraft, and this time, because replacements are in play, we allocated strategic bombers to remove German replacements. And they didn't like that so much, so they put the rest of their Air Force there for the month to stop that. So they got their 2 infantry and 1 armor replacement. They really need the armor replacement to build up those armor units, at least one of them. And to have any chance of doing that, they couldn't lose. The first one they would lose would be the armor. And so they couldn't lose any, so they had to put their entire Air Force there on defense. We've got 2 railway attacks going on, and everything else going on, ground support. We are ignoring the V1 attacks and the U-boat attacks. That costs the Allies a replacement each, 1 British, 1 U.S. And the Allies pulled out the wounded British Para, which is really the only surviving Para from the airdrops here, and brought in 4 more American divisions, which they can afford to do, and they're using mega air power to get 2 5-to-1 attacks. One on the city of Brest, the other is the German unit on the high ground that we're going to try to take out. Here goes. And the British achieve a D1 result, which puts 1 hit on the defender of the defender's choice, and the attacker gets to retreat them 2 hexes. Up here, we got the worst result we could get, which I think is the second time we did that, a DR result. And in that fortress, they do not have to retreat. So at the end of Impulse 1, this is where we are. So the British move over the the 79th Armor to the Mulberry to combine with an American unit that's already there. Units of different nationalities can stack and defend together. However, they cannot attack together. So on defense, that's a perfectly fine thing to do. Now on the attack going into the town, into Brest. Just because we failed the first time, we get to do it again. We're in a unit ZOC, so we get to hit it again. We can't, in fact, we can't move because we started in the ZOC, and we have to hit it again. I had one more air unit left over. The base was 3-1. This time we're getting a 4-1, and hopefully we get something then a DR. That's right. And the desperation assault succeeds. We got a DE, eliminating the unit in Brest. However, since there's no advance, officially the Germans still control the town of Brest. In the first impulse of the German turn, we see that two of the units have decided to go ahead and get their heads screwed back on again. So we've applied a couple replacement points, one for an infantry unit and one for an armor unit, so that they will get back up to full strength. Other units are starting to form a line cordoning off at the end of the peninsula. So I think we're kind of getting to that point where the Germans are kind of accepting that, okay, they made a landing, but it is bottled up, and the longer the Germans can keep it bottled up, the better. So I think we're kind of getting into that next stage, which is containment. Once that fails, then we get into the breakout part, where the Allies can start zooming across France. But I don't think that's going to happen for a while. I think the Germans they have a good narrow defensive corridor that they can hold at least for a while. And they did some damage. They destroyed 2 divisions completely, both United States Airborne divisions, as well as the British Commando unit did some damage in addition to that. So they got their pound of flesh, and they did hold on to Lorient, so they hung on to this guy, but they could not hang on to Brest. I don't foresee that happening with the strength that's available to the Germans. But they are bringing in more units. They're going to get tougher. They already have brought in some. They're going to get even more tough, and it's going to take air power to get the Allies out of this battle, I think. All right. Well, I'm going to stop here. This is not really intended as a playthrough. It's more of a just demonstration of how this game can operate like, and we can see it can be a real nail biter in the beginning. As I would say that the invasion of France was a nail biter. It also demonstrates that this invasion could have failed. Pulling this all together, I like Fortress Europa for its old-timey appeal, all dressed up in shiny new clothes. It provides a broader view than other titles, such as Normandy 44, while despite its physical size, eschews the trappings and pitfalls of becoming a monster game, or even a mini-monster. Less filling, tastes better. And that wraps up Fortress Europa and my return to YouTube. If you have enjoyed this, please remember to hit the subscribe button so you can see what cool stuff I can dream up next. This is Paul the Oaken Knight, wishing everyone a pleasant evening.